Welcome, everyone. If you haven't been here before, hopefully you've joined us through our Find My Past live in person this Wednesday, or you've come from somewhere else that you found us. Either way, we're very happy to have you. My name is Amanda Napper. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Niagara Peninsula branch of Ontario Ancestors. I am a member of the Niagara branch, of course, and the Niagara OGS is always looking for new members. It's always membership season. We appreciate your support and would love for you to support the Niagara branch specifically. Among the many benefits, we have access to special Niagara-specific resources. We can provide you assistance with your genealogical brick walls. You will help us to support projects to preserve Niagara's heritage, and you'll support our ability to continue these webinars, which we do roughly once a month, although we just have come back from our summer hiatus. Our master index of all of the records that we have on our site is now on ancestry.com. So you may find records that are available on our website on ancestry.com. And if you have not found us through our monthly newsletter, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter at niagara.ogs.on.ca. It's the best way to keep tabs on our new resources, current research, upcoming webinars, and various local regional events. Tonight, we've got a special overview of the Canadiana collections, including demonstrations of how to search for genealogical materials and tips on getting the most out of the collections. Our presenters will share details of some exciting updates that are coming soon to the Canadiana platform. The Canadiana collections are stewarded by the Canadian Research Knowledge Network, a member organization representing 88 institutions across Canada, including the world-class academic libraries and research institutions, 2 national libraries, and Canada's largest public library system. Our presenters are Francesca and Percy. It's a first for us. We've got 2 presenters tonight instead of just 1. Welcome. Francesca is the Heritage Engagement Officer at CRKN, and she holds an MA in Public History and from Carleton University. And Percy Miller is the Heritage Services Specialist at CRKN. She holds a BA from Mount Allison University as well as a Master of Information from the University of Toronto. Welcome. I hope, are you guys able to unmute yourselves? I may have to. There, perfect. All right. Welcome again. I'm really looking forward to the presentation tonight. I've used the Canadiana collections probably, as I said earlier, not to the best of my abilities. So I'm looking really forward to figuring out how I can use them to advance my genealogical research. So thank you for joining us tonight, and I will unpin myself and let you guys go. So just flag me if there's anything that you need. We will hold all questions till the end. So if you do have a question, please tag me in the comments and I will make sure that we note it and ask at the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, Francesca, do you want to start us off with our title?
Sure.
And then, yeah.
Yes. So as you all know, we are here today to talk about genealogical research in the Canadiana collections. Thanks so much for joining us. And we're just going to start off our presentation with a couple of land acknowledgements. So I'll hand it over to Percy first.
Thanks, Francesca. I'm currently speaking to you from Toronto, and I want to acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples.
And I'm coming to you today from Gatineau, Quebec. So I acknowledge that I live on and work on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. And CRKN's offices are also located on this territory. And through our work, we are committed to acknowledging colonial injustices, supporting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit data sovereignty, and working in partnership with communities. We're going to start this presentation with a little bit of background about CRKN and the work that we do, some of which Amanda has already helpfully gone over. But just to reiterate, we are a member organization empowering researchers, educators, and society with greater access to the world's research in Canada's documentary heritage. And we are a member organization with 88 institutions across Canada. Most of our members are academic institutions, but we also have Library and Archives Canada, Bibliothèque et Archives nationales du Québec, and the Toronto Public Library, which is Canada's largest public library system. So you'll see our vision and mission here on the screen. And I'd also just like to point out that we have 3 main programs at CRKN. So Canadiana and our heritage work is one of them, but we also do licensing and open access work for our member libraries. And this is where we negotiate with scholarly publishers to obtain digital access to content for those libraries. And then we have a program called, or it's our persistent identifiers program. And this is something that is mostly used in the scholarly publishing workflow, but you will see persistent identifiers on Canadiana as our persistent URL. So this is a feature that we rolled out just earlier this year, and I think Percy will explain in a little more detail later. I won't go into our other programs in a lot of detail right now, but you can always visit our website if you want to learn more about what we do. Okay, and next, a little bit of background on the Canadiana collections themselves. So their history actually goes back to 1978 when the Canadian Institute for Historical Microreproductions was formed. And this was a group that was formed in response to the need to preserve and make accessible important Canadian printed documentary heritage. So they created microfilm and microfiche copies of many important and rare and interesting Canadian publications, and those were distributed to libraries across the country. This was, of course, in the pre-digital days. So in 1996, they did start their first digital project. And then in 2008, they merged with an organization called Alouette Canada to form Canadiana.org. So that is the origin of the Canadiana name. In 2013, the Héritage project was launched. So that's our other major collection, which we'll also be discussing today. It's a partnership with Library and Archives Canada to digitize and make accessible many of their microfilm film. In 2018, Canadiana.org merged with CRKN, and we continue to work as a merged organization. And then a year later was another really big milestone for us, as thanks to the generosity of the CRKN membership, the collections became accessible at no charge. So the paywall that was previously there is now gone, and anyone can access Canadiana free of charge. So how do we grow and manage Canadiana today? There is still a small amount of that original CIHM microformat collection, which has not been digitized. We're almost at the end of it, but there's still a little bit left, and we continue to work on that. As well, we continue to update and make corrections to Canadiana records regularly. We also add projects received from our member institutions through our Call for Canadiana Collection Development projects. So this was a call that we did for the first time last year, open to the CRKN membership, where we basically asked them to recommend collections to us, to propose collections that would be a good fit for Canadiana. As well, on an ad hoc basis, as we receive them, we do take digitization requests from our members and from external organizations with collections that they would like to digitize and host on Canadiana. In terms of Héritage, we also regularly receive digitized reels for that collection. And all of our work is guided and underpinned by our Preservation and Access Committee, which is our standing committee that's dedicated to all our Canadiana and heritage work, as well as their subcommittees. We also have ongoing discussion with members and partners about Canadiana, as well as user discussion, user feedback. So that's something that we've really focused on this year, is making sure that we have clear lines of communication with Canadiana users. And then lastly, all the hard work by staff that goes into maintaining the collections. So as many of you probably already know, and some of you may not, there are 2 separate collections. So there is Canadiana.ca, and then there is Héritage. And they are 2 separate websites with different content on them. We often refer to them collectively as the Canadiana collections, but they are 2 separate collections. In Canadiana, you will find monographs, serials, government publications, and maps, ranging from the very earliest documents we have were published in the 1550s, and they generally go until about 1934. That is a rolling date because that is our public domain cutoff. So basically, we consider anything published over 90 years ago to be in the public domain, and basically fair game for us to reproduce and share on Canadiana. But more recent content we consider to be in copyright. So we do have certain collections with more recent content, but that's only for material that we've obtained copyright permissions for. So that's a bit of an explanation on the different dates that we have available for different collections. All the material is Canadian with a fairly broad definition. So either published in Canada, written by a Canadian, or about Canada. It contains about 21 million pages of content. And then just to reiterate, it's published material only. Books, newspapers, magazines, annual reports, pamphlets, government documents. That is all what you will find on Canadiana. Oh, and then the maps, which are from the National Topographic Series collection. So you won't find unpublished material like letters or diaries or unpublished government documents on Canadiana. As an example, here are a few of the types of collections of the types of items that you will find on Canadiana that might be of interest to you as Niagara genealogists. So first off, we have a handful of early Niagara Historical Society publications. We have city and county directories for cities like Hamilton and St. Catharines, and then some county level directories as well that include small towns. The illustrated historical county atlases for Lincoln and Welland counties, Wentworth, Brant, Haldimand, and more. And I just like to call attention to this collection because this is one that actually came out of that call for Canadiana Collection Development Project. So one of our members, McGill University, supplied us with brand new scans of these atlases. We also have a handful of printed family histories on Canadiana, which are documents that were published by families who wanted to record their ancestry and their lineages for posterity. And then lastly, we always have local ephemera for you to dig through on Canadiana. This image was from a old boys and old girls homecoming pamphlet, and it includes several photos of local people and advertisements. There's often lists of names, so stuff like that can be really interesting to dig through from a genealogical perspective. Now I'm going to transfer it over to Percy, who will provide you more information on how to get the most out of Canadiana.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Francesca. So before we look at these specific slides, what we'll do is I'll share my screen and we'll go to the home page of Canadiana, because for those of you for whom this is new, I want to make sure that you have a really good sense of how all the moving parts of this website operate. And if you are an avid user, I hope something that I'll tell you today is new to you. Okay, so here is our homepage. Here you can learn about our collection. This is a direct link to the other portal, Héritage. This is a link to our corporate website, upon which you will actually find some information about both Canadiana and Héritage. Amanda, if I can ask you to post that link, the Navigating the Collections page includes both search tips for Canadiana and Héritage, as well as reference guides that may be really useful starting points depending on the kinds of content you're looking for. So oftentimes those guides are created in collaboration with LAC staff. Sometimes users have kindly gone out of their way to create indexes of content that they are working on, and we will review them and then post them. So anyways, yeah, a really wonderful amount of information is held there. So too, things like our metadata records and our usage stats about the collections are held on that page. This webpage right here, the What's New, if you don't know, that is a page where we have upcoming content that will be added both to Canadiana and Héritage. So if you have been told something is coming soon, that's a really great place to keep tabs on it. We also have a citation guide. So this will allow you to cite materials from Canadiana in a variety of academic publishing styles. We would like to draw attention, though, to the fact that this will not give you instructions for how to cite content in Héritage, because that is owned by Library and Archives Canada, so they have their own citation guide. And then, yes, if ever you need to contact us, this is a form that will lead you right there. So to the help button, which will again lead you to like a simplified version of those search tips if you ever need them. When you scroll down, if you would like to narrow your search from the get-go, you can go by collection or browse by collection. So we have monographs or books, serials, periodicals, annuals, and newspapers, government publications, and maps, which is also delineated by province and territory. We also have a statement on problematic content and descriptions in Canadiana. As Francesca mentioned, we have things ranging back to the 1550s, which means that some of the titles and the content, as well as the metadata or keyword subjects, are going to have outdated terminology that may be offensive. This is something that we're actively working to improve, but if you do come across something that you note as particularly offensive, we would, of course, welcome you to contact us about it and flag it. Another thing that I wanted to mention, so Francesca talked earlier about the persistent identifier stream of CRKN. That has now nicely intertwined with our heritage work in that if you click on an item in our collection, up here you'll see your standard URL. But if you go to the descriptive metadata about the record, here you'll see a persistent URL. And that is really valuable for a lot of reasons. I know and have heard from a number of genealogical users particularly that you folks are sharing content with each other, you're making link trees, you're trying to ensure that you have routine access to these documents over time. And because of the nature of our work, and we're always trying to ameliorate our metadata, ensure that the images match the title. And sometimes because we are human, things go wrong. And previously, that meant that sometimes the URL had to change, and then it resulted in broken links for both us and our users. But now that we have this persistent URL field, it means that you will always be able to get back to this place. So that's really exciting and something that our users have been asking for some time. And so we're very pleased to have rolled that out this summer. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that page and we'll go back to our presentation. Let's just get it organized. Fabulous. Okay. So as with pretty much any database, you are welcome to search by title, author, or creator name, subject keyword, and also text content of books and other documents. Something that's really useful about our database is that search terms do not have to be case or accent sensitive to yield accurate results. One way that you can start to narrow your search, but have different levels of control about how broad or how narrow, would be by using wildcards. In this instance, you can use a question mark in the middle or at the end of a word to match any one character in that search term, and that would be used for more precise search. Whereas to use an asterisk, that would allow you to match any number of characters, including no characters at all, which would allow for a broader search. So, you want one term, but you want to still keep it not too precise, or you're not exactly sure what you're looking for, but it has something to do with, in this example, labor. Double brackets. Double brackets are your best friend in Canadiana, I like to say, because they allow you to search for an exact phrase. And it particularly only when you enclose all of the words in that double quotes. But I do want to draw attention to the fact that you cannot use wildcards within that. They serve different purposes, so our system won't respond appropriately, essentially, to combining those two search methods. Yeah, in my example here, we're drawing attention to using double quotes around Quebec City to find results that only have both Quebec and city in the results rather than just Quebec or just city. Similarly, you can narrow by excluding certain terms by using the dash or the minus symbol. So this would allow you to find documents that contain Paris, but not France. Another way you can get precise is by using title, author, or subject but by essentially caveating that you only want the title, or you only want the author, or you only want the subject. This is particularly useful when you want to delineate results that could appear in multiple fields. So for example, if you are looking for works written by Lucy Maud Montgomery rather than works about L.M. Montgomery, this is a perfect opportunity to specify to the system what it is you need. Some of you may know, and as we mentioned earlier, we did add a collection of maps to Canadiana about 2.5 years ago, which was courtesy of McGill University. To search more broadly, the maps are separated out by province and territory, as I mentioned, but if you already know the area you are looking for, we suggest that you first consult the National Topographic System Index maps, which allows you to access the specific NTS number that represents that area. So once you have that 5-digit number, what you can do then is come back to the Canadiana search interface, ensure to put X0 before your 5-digit number, and then you will yield the correct result. So if you put in X084M01, that will get Adair Creek, Alberta, very specifically. Okay. So we had set aside time for questions, but per Amanda's instruction, perhaps we'll keep going and we'll save all your questions for the end, if that's
okay. Let us dive into the Héritage collection. So Héritage contains popular and important microfilm fonts from Library and Archives Canada in the C, H, and T microfilm series. So those letters are prefixes that you'll find at the beginning of each microfilm reel. C designates microfilm private papers and public records from the National Archives of Canada. H designates microfilm documents from the Manuscript Division, and T is microfilm records from the Government Archives Division. These are archival records, as we've been discussing, and so this is where you will find unpublished material. So that's where you'll find your letters and journals and scrapbooks and unpublished government documents like immigration records and things of that nature. This collection covers approximately the 17th to 20th centuries, and it contains 43 million pages. So as a raw collection, it is about twice as big as the Canadiana collection. Another important difference is the discoverability of Héritage. So with Canadiana, because it's all printed material, it's very easy to OCR it, optical character recognition software, to process it and enable full text keyword searching. So that's when, you can type in a keyword and it'll bring it up on the page that you're looking for. Because Héritage is mostly handwritten, we can't do that with the same tool. There are some typewritten collections in Héritage that have been OCR'd, but the majority of them haven't been. Also, I'll mention that a few years ago, we launched an intelligent character recognition pilot project. And intelligent character recognition is similar to OCR, but it uses basically AI models to recognize text, and it can be used on handwritten text. So we started this pilot project on a subset of the RG10 Department of Indian Affairs records in Héritage, but it hasn't been rolled out to the entire collection yet. So if those RG10 collections are of interest to you, I would really highly encourage you to go in and check out what we've been doing with them. But as I said, we're not there yet in terms of rolling it out to the entire collection. And this means that you have to get a little bit creative when you're searching, as Percy will get into in a little more detail. Once again, I've just outlined a few potential interesting collections for Niagara genealogists, and they're almost all kind of early land records. So first of all is the records of the first Eyre and Devizes Commission from 1797 to 1804. And this commission was established to clarify the titles to lands in Upper Canada which had been granted before patent deeds started being issued on Crown grants in 1795. These are pretty early land records. We also have the Upper Canada Sundries. These records range from about 1766 to 1841, and they consist of a variety of documents received by the Civil Secretary of Upper Canada. And this collection was noted by LAC as being particularly interesting for genealogy work. Next, the Upper Canada land books and the Province of Canada land books. You'll see Quebec in the title as well. I've included that because that's how it appears on Héritage. But of course, for our purposes, we would be looking at those Upper Canada and then the general Province of Canada records. So these books contain deliberations, decisions, and recommendations of the Land Committee of the Executive Council. Settlers would apply for ownership of Crown lands by submitting a petition to this committee. The committee would review the petition and make a decision, and all that deliberations and the recommendations are what you will find in this collection. So whether or not that settler was granted the land that they applied for. There are also a few other collections I found that relate to the Niagara area. The first one is the Francis Goring Fall. This was the records of a British-born man who settled in the Niagara area in the late 18th century, and it includes his correspondence and miscellaneous papers, including things like house and farm expenses, crops planted, lists of his students while he was a teacher, and so on. As well, the William Hamilton Merritt Papers. He was an important figure, of course, in the development of the Niagara region, and this collection includes his correspondence, ledgers, diaries, and so on. And then finally, the Upper Canada and Canada West returns of population and assessment. So these records are similar to census records, but they are more concerned, at least in my browsing of them, with land use. So how many people lived in a certain town? How many acres of farmland did they have? How many grist mills did they have? And so on. Okay, back to Percy to teach you more about how to search on Héritage.
Okay, thanks, Francesca. So one challenge I had when trying to think about how best to explain this search process is that I know that researchers may be starting from a number of given points in the research process. So maybe you're starting on our website, maybe you're starting on LAC, or maybe you're starting somewhere else. One piece of advice I have for this group would be to always check the Navigating the Collections site that we provided earlier, just in case any of those indexes might give you clues about where to begin, how to get more precise more quickly, and this sort of thing. Research is a wonderful thing, but can sometimes be an exercise in frustration, and wherever we can reduce that, we would encourage you to. Here, I'm going through the mind of a researcher, and I'm going to assume that you're starting on the LAC website. So if that's the case, you would want to first say, look at many of their guides, perhaps to see relevant subject or collection area. They have resources for this sort of thing and describe which sub-collections of theirs might suit your needs. Once you have a sense of that, I would recommend you go to their advanced collection search, and we'll show a live demo of how you do this after I walk through these steps. Once you have inputted the appropriate finding aid number or reference code or volume, you can enter that search and always check the finding aid section to see if our website has been linked as already having digitized content of those microfilm. There definitely are cases where we have their content, but it has not been put into their records. So please do not take that as gospel. It's usually worth checking. But I will say that if you notice, the microfilm reels described in their records have a leading letter that is B or Q or a different letter, then you know for sure it won't be on our collection because we only have microfilm in the C, H, or T series. You can review your results once you've started to narrow, obviously looking for any microfilm reels or digitized copies that are going to be referenced. If it has, then plug that number into the Héritage portal and see if it matches what you're looking for. And you may have to go back and forth between the two websites to find the appropriate content before you get your answer. So let's say that you know that your great-great-grandparents immigrated to this country as children. An area to start with that might be juvenile inspection records. There is a reference guide on the Navigating the Collections page for us about that. But what the video is going to show you is how you might start that search on the LAC site. Without further ado, Francesca, could you please advance and press play? Okay, so you're on collection search. You're going to hit advanced search. Here, you're going to select in the collections collections and phone. This is really important. You want to narrow it to not have library material added in with all of these results. From there, you're going to add a word or a number. So here I've put in juvenile inspection, hit search. Juvenile inspection report cards is what we're after. We're going to go down into the finding aid section, and here we are. We have a link, right? So let's say my relative is Thomas O'Brien, and he is located on, as you can see here, reel T15425. So then I can take that reel number, hop over here, and wait for the website to load. And then voila, there is that card. So obviously this is a very streamlined way of doing this because the information was there. Sometimes you are going to miss little pieces in between that make that process not quite so easy. However, we do want to really emphasize to you folks that we're available to help. We search in this collection all the time. We also have direct links with LAC. So if there are things that are really unclear or resources that are needed to make these collections more understandable, we are happy to work with them and with you to get you the answers that you need.
Okay, so as promised, we thought we would give you all a little sneak peek of what's coming next for the Canadiana collections. So first of all, we have some major infrastructure updates that are underway. As those of you who have used Canadiana probably know, it's running on some fairly outdated software at this point. And so we're really excited to be able to upgrade it and bring it up to the industry standard for, or closer at least to the industry standard for digital collections. Part of these updates include a new search interface with more search facets, search term highlighting, which is a highly requested feature that I think we all wish we had and we're really excited about. And then a more accessible image viewer with a number of new features, including gallery view. So no more trying to search through a list of just image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll be able to actually see all the images that are in the document. There will be a public beta version of this new, what we're calling Canadiana 2.0. It will be coming, we hope, in the winter. So make sure that you stay in touch with us so that you don't miss that and you can test it out for yourself. Next, we have a project that we're calling the Future of Canadian. This is a large-scale, multi-year project that is really geared towards our academic community, but which will also have a lot of really important benefits for non-academic researchers as well. We hope that it will be grant funded. We've submitted a Canada Foundation for Innovation grant proposal for this project, and it will include some fairly advanced features like being able to search, read, and download full text, so full OCR or ICR, intelligent character recognition transcriptions. We also hope to roll out intelligent character recognition for handwritten and hard to read content across the collections. Intelligent search capabilities that would allow you to search beyond textual content, and of course, much more. So as I said, this is a large-scale multi-year project. We're really still in the early phases of it, but it's one of our next big steps for how we plan to improve Canadiana. If you would like to stay in touch and get involved, we encourage you to email us at info@crkn.ca. Right now, as I alluded to before, we're really focused on user research. So in the past, we've done user experience testing for new software that we're planning, as well as surveys and virtual group interviews. And these are focus group style sessions where we sit down with Canadiana users and ask them about what they like about Canadiana, what they don't like, their challenges, what they want to see, all of that stuff. We're really trying to start that conversation. And in particular, right now, we are looking for participants for our teachers at all levels for that group, as well as students, either undergraduate or graduate students, and post-secondary researchers. So if that is you or somebody that you know and you think that this is an activity you'd be interested in, please get in touch with us. But even if you're not in those groups, we would always love to hear from you. So feel free to contact us at any time. You can stay in touch, as I mentioned, by emailing us with your research questions. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. And then we have a newsletter, which you can also sign up for. It does include news on all our programs, not just Canadiana, but it's still a good way to stay in touch and keep track of the latest news. So with that, I think we are bringing it to a close.
That's fantastic. So much information. And I'm sure everything now with the advent of AI becoming more and more available, that your jobs are changing a bit in terms of the information that you'll be able to pull out of the collections.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've got a few questions already. Terry asks, what search terms did you use to find materials of interest for Niagara genealogists? I want to apply my geographic area of interest.
I think I started fairly broadly just by searching Niagara, like just Niagara and the main Canadiana search box, and then seeing what came up. And one thing that I have started to do, which is not a perfect solution, but I do find to be very helpful, is once I find an item of interest, I go into the metadata, which is below the item for a single item. Here's the first hit. I got Niagara Historical Society, and it will give you everything that has been cataloged with that subject. So this is something that I've been doing a lot recently, and I found that to be very helpful. Let me see if there's another example that maybe has more than one subject cataloged. This one gets a little bit more specific. For example, you see it has Niagara Historical Society, but also Memorial Hall in Niagara. It has a French subject, and then Legislators Ontario, Niagara. So if I'm interested in this one, I could click this and see, okay, this looks actually like a duplicate of the same document, but as you can see, it will show you what else has been cataloged with that subject heading. So I believe that's how I found most of the documents that I pulled out for you, as well as some of them like the illustrated county atlases, which I already knew were online. So I was able to pull those up fairly easily, and searching for the particular county that you're interested in, the particular town, such as Grimsby, for example. You can do all kinds of things and then use these search facets on the side to narrow down your search further. So I hope that was a bit of a window into how I approach this topic at a high level.
Yeah, certainly. And there does appear to be a lot of information in there. Linda says, I wanted to do research on my grandfather who immigrated from Italy to Canada, specifically one of the Atlantic provinces, not sure where. Could I just use his last name to search? He may have been in prison, but Corrections Canada does not have him in any of the prisons in Atlantic Canada. Do you have prison records? So that's a couple of questions.
Yeah. So Linda, I would maybe recommend sending me an email with a bit more information about your case, because I might be able to get more specific. With this amount of information, it's a little bit hard to tell how close I could get you. I will note that sometimes when we're talking about immigration records or things where people touch government, some of that is going to be held at the national level at LAC, and some of that is actually going to be provincial. So it's a little bit tricky when you don't know which of the Atlantic provinces this person was in, because each province holds their own records, and sometimes correctional records are a provincial matter. Just even doing a quick search right before I answered your question, I see that Archives of Ontario has a whole criminal justice records guide, and potentially other provincial archives have produced something similar. So that's another area where I always look to my provincial archivist colleagues, because they have a wealth of information where sometimes we don't have that expertise because our collections are vast. And I see you also asked a question about the maids and whether they may be registered under the census record that showed employees and their staff. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I would need to know that person's name and do a bit of poking around to see what comes. So I'm sorry I can't answer your question directly, but please feel free to email me and I can see what I can find.
Perfect. Elaine wants to know if there's any information about the history of sports in Canada, such as football.
Yes, for sure there is. We had someone actually doing a really interesting project who contacted us last year about the history of Mi'kmaq baseball and was able to find some sources in our catalog for that. So we do have, say, like minute books of club sports and sometimes yearbooks and things like this that are going to touch a little bit about sport and athletes. Yeah.
Perfect. And I see that you've answered Alicia's questions about the films that are available on Canadiana.
I see Terry has a question. Sometimes I search for a microfilm and get 0 results. Okay. So Terry, sometimes I would recommend, if you haven't tried this already, to search the real number in double quotes, because sometimes results can get buried. The other thing I would recommend to do is email us with the real number and say, could you double check where this real number might be at? Because it's possible it's being processed and is going to be put online. But we can also, on an ad hoc basis, make requests to Library and Archives Canada if it falls within that series. And it's not, the only other caveat is whether it has code 90 on it. So code 90 essentially means that it has been opened to the public. There are restrictions on some of that content. If you ever are looking at an LAC record and code 32, it means it's still closed, likely for privacy or other reasons. Yeah.
Perfect. Shirley's wondering if there's any newspapers that might be there that are not at the other online resources like Ancestry or MyHeritage.
I would say yes.
Yes. I can think of 1 or 2 off the top of my head that, as far as I know, aren't available elsewhere. So I would say yes. I don't think we can give a really specific answer at this point, but for sure, I would take a look at least.
Perfect. Oh, I've got a lot of thanks. Great presentation. Does anybody else have any questions for lots of thank yous? Lots of wonderful information. So I'm just going to ask one of those out there questions. Is there a record that you've come across that has been like really interesting to you, and can you tell us about it?
About 2 years ago, I was contacted by someone who, her husband had fought in the Second World War, and she knew that there had been a wartime magazine with his picture on it and had lost her original copy, and he had passed away and was really eager to see if she could find another one. And we were actually able to find it for her. So that was really special to be able to do that. We also had someone, we occasionally, as I think this group would know acutely, sometimes records tell you a different story than the one you were intending to find. So we had someone looking for their great-grandfather's court-martial records, and we did find them. Honestly, what he got court-martialed for was, frankly, throwing a hissy fit at his superior officer and swearing at him. It's a lot of records to be created and a lot of due process for having a fit. But yeah, it's really interesting. Sometimes you find out something quite personal about somebody that you don't know. And sometimes, yeah, you find out an interesting piece of Canadian history. It's like areas that they don't teach you in school, or things like this that you have to go down a rabbit hole to find.
Yeah, you wonder 100 years down the road what kind of records they're going to find about us.
Yes.
Certainly a lot more digitally online photographs, whatnot, than there would have been way back when. But interesting still that you can find those things about different people when there wasn't a digital environment. Sure. I see half a question from Mary Leah. She's talking about her great-grandparents, Peter McPherson, Chelsea pensioner, and it just cuts off. So if you've got a question, Mary Leah, please finish it in the chat and we'll definitely ask. Linda's asking if you charge for extensive research. Sometimes a simple question can give a long answer.
We don't, but we do have limits specifically on my time, as I am the only person to do that kind of reference work. And I also have other responsibilities at CRKN. I will do my best, if I can't find the answer, to point you in the direction of where you should go next.
That's perfect. Mary Lee has come back and said, do you have information about the Chelsea pensioners?
I would need to do some digging. Off the top of my head, I'm actually not sure. Our collections are so big that it's sometimes hard. If I've not come across that question before, I just don't even know what we might have. Mary Leah, if you want to send me an email with a bit more specifics about what you're looking for, I'd be happy to take a look.
Perfect. And how often are you receiving new documents in the collection? Are you getting new submissions all the time, or
For Canadiana or Heritage or both?
both? Yeah.
Yeah, so it a little bit depends on where we are in our project cycle. Sometimes something will take a lot longer because it's quite large to digitize, and that might slow down the flow of new content. But we are always working on digitizing something. So even if it's not yet put online, new stuff will come. It just depends on, yeah, the size of project.
Do you put that in your newsletter, letting people know what's up and coming, or?
So that the best place to know would be the what's new and what's coming page, which I can pull up for you.
Perfect. Sid is asking who funds Canadiana. I think you covered that at the beginning.
Yeah, it's our member institutions. So it's mostly academic university libraries from all over Canada.
Perfect. All right. I think our questions have pretty much dried off. So I'm going to say thank you very much, ladies, for joining us tonight. I think we've learned quite a lot, and you're probably going to see a bit of a surge in search traffic on your website over the next little bit, which is great. Great to have more people coming through. Again, if you haven't joined our newsletter for the Niagara branch, I highly recommend that you do. That's where we advertise these upcoming webinars. We're taking another hiatus in October because a number of our volunteer staff are away, but we will be back in November. I don't actually have a presentation title for you yet, but keep an eye on the newsletter for that. We've also got volunteers in the Welland Library and the Jordan Library coming up in November. So if you want to meet up with us in person, again, keep an eye on the newsletter. It'll give you all the details, and we can help you figure out where your Niagara relatives are. All right, thank you very much, Francesca and Percy. I really appreciate your depth of knowledge and the fact that you joined us to share it all. And I know that the membership does as well, because I'm seeing a whole bunch of people saying thank you and lots of hearts and clapping. Wonderful. So thank you very much. And we hope to maybe see you again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank
All
you.
right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekends.
You too.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.